Have you ever thought about what protects your organs, controls what enters your body, and blocks harmful pathogens? Well, that's the role of tissue membranes, and that's what we're talking about today. Hi, everybody, welcome to the second episode, part A-B of the Anatomy and Physiology series. My name is Ridhi Sreenivas, and today we're going to be talking about tissue membranes. And I'm kind of bringing this up after talking about epithelial tissue and connective tissues because most tissue membranes in the human body are made of epithelial tissues and supported by connective tissues. So basically connecting these two concepts we previously learned about. So a tissue membrane is basically this layer of layers of tissue that covers, separates, and lines structures of the body. And they usually are composed of epithelial tissues and connective tissue. And there are four types of tissue membranes. There's the cutaneous membrane, the mucous membrane, the serous membrane, and the synovial membrane. And we're going to talk about each one today. Okay. So first we're going to look at the cutaneous membrane, which is quite literally the skin that covers the surface of your body. It has two layers. There's the epidermis and dermis, which are examples that I've actually brought up a lot when we were talking in the series. So hopefully these terms look familiar. But basically the epidermis is the outermost layer of your skin. It's the one that you can see right now and is composed of stratified squamous epithelial tissue that functions to basically provide protection since it is the outermost layer of your skin. And the dermis is composed of both areolar tissue and dense irregular connective tissue, providing a nutrient supply to the epidermis through diffusion since the epidermis is avascular because it's epithelial tissue. And sensory detection is provided by the dermis due to having free nerve endings and they have more functions, of course. But in total, some general functions collectively of the cutaneous membrane is it protects against pathogens and injury, provides sensation, temperature regulation, etc. And some characteristics of the cutaneous membrane is it is dry, thick, and waterproof due to the epidermis containing this protein called keratin. And we'll talk more about the cutaneous membrane when we get into the integumentary system soon. Okay. So next we have the mucous membrane, also known as the mucosa. It is this moist membrane which basically lines body passageways that open to the outside, connecting to the external environment in some way. And some examples of places that mucous membranes are found is along the digestive, urinary, respiratory, and reproductive tracts. And it is composed of epithelial tissue that secretes mucus from glands or goblet cells that keeps the surface moist to reduce friction. But the type of epithelial tissue depends on where you are referring to it, like the urinary tract has a different type of epithelial tissue in its mucous membrane than the respiratory tract. And the epithelial tissue is supported by areolar tissue called the lamina propria in this case. And the mucous membrane in total works to provide protection through the secretion of mucus as mucus traps pathogens, and it also works to secrete substances and provide lubrication so the substances can pass easily through the tract. And what it secretes and what passes through, though, just depends on where you are referring to the mucous membrane being. Like if it's in the digestive tract, it'll secrete something different, and different things will pass through compared to in the respiratory tract. Okay. So next we have the serous membrane, which are these thin, moist membranes that line internal body cavities that don't open to the outside, unlike mucous membranes. And they are composed of simple squamous epithelium that is called the mesothelium in this case, and is supported by underlying areolar connective tissues. And the secretory cells in the epithelial tissue secretes serous fluid, providing lubrication, reducing friction, and serous membranes also provide protection in general. But there are three major examples of serous membranes in the human body, one being the peritoneum that lines the abdominal cavity, two being the pericardium that surrounds the heart, and the third one is the pleura, which is what surrounds the lungs, as you can see in this image here. And lastly, we're going to talk about the synovial membrane, which lines joint cavities between bones. And the synovial membrane is composed of two layers, areolar tissue and an unusual, not true epithelial tissue layer of cells called synoviocytes. And this epithelial tissue is unusual because this one develops from within the connective tissue and does not have a basement membrane, and the cells aren't as tightly packed as they usually are in epithelial tissue. So that is why the synovial membrane is commonly thought to be just like a connective tissue membrane, but it technically does have both. And synovial membrane secretory cells also secrete a fluid called synovial fluid that allows the bones to move smoothly against each other and provides lubrication. So due to the presence of this fluid, some functions of the synovial membranes are reducing friction, helps with shock absorption, and supplying nutrients to the cartilages on that bone, which are called articular cartilages, which are basically hyaline cartilages that cover the ends of bones. And some examples where synovial membranes are found is basically like at any joint, like a shoulder joint between the humerus and scapula, or like the hip joint between a femur and pelvic bone. So those are some examples, but there are many more, of course. But that is the end of this video where we went through those tissue membranes. So if there are any questions or things you are specifically curious about this type of tissue, then please feel free to comment those down below and we can definitely discuss it. But anyways, thank you so much for watching this video and stay tuned for future videos.